Oh, hey guys, welcome back to another architecture video. Now, normally when we're talking architecture, we're talking about buildings for people. Generally speaking, 99% of the time when people are talking about architecture, it's for people. But not today, because we're looking at this building right here. This is architecture for animals. And what makes that different? Well, in this case, this is a barn. This is a really nice barn, and it's a horse barn in particular. So that's kind of how you have to imagine designing this building. And we're going to talk about the differences when in designing architecture for humans versus architecture for animals. And what is the difference? Because in a lot of ways they're kind of similar, right? Like if you're designing a building for people, that's your end user. That's who your client is. That's who you're designing for. In this case, you can kind of treat it the same way, but you just have to think, oh, my client is a horse, right? So that's kind of your end user. That's who's really using the space. Obviously, there's humans and people using this as well, um, but that's kind of just the same approach. You just think about your user, who's actually going to be occupying this building, who's in there using it every day. What do they need? What do they don't need? What's convenient for them? And you design for that group. So we'll dig into this one a little bit. This project came onto my radar because it recently won some awards. This is in Ontario somewhere. I should note that this is by, I believe the company is called Post Structure. Post Structure or Post Structures, I can't remember. But either way, if you're looking for a barn in Ontario, they do some nice work. Check them out. Kudos to them. And like I said, this project won some awards, so let's dive right into it here. So, first and foremost, obviously this is a big building, right? This, I forget, it has like 8 or 10 stalls in here, and then also there's kind of a big training center in the back. So that's the first thing to note. I think this is like almost 7,000 square feet, so it's pretty big. Some really nice little features, some little flourishes here. There are a couple things that I'm going to point out that I don't love about this project, but generally speaking, it's a pretty cool building, especially in terms of a barn. It's like the nicest barn I've seen. Um, so, what do we got? First thing you'll notice is it's got this kind of beautiful stone front facade. I think this is the front. You're probably facing this way when you're at the street or something, and you're sort of looking at this front elevation. So that's where they have the stone, and you can see it stops there, and then on the sides and the back they used wood cladding, which is clearly going to be a little bit cheaper than stone, which is super expensive. They had some really nice touches here. I'm just going to go to a smaller pen size. They had some really nice touches with these arched doorways, right? So these are going into the stalls for the horses, right? Stalls? Is it pens? A horse pen? Horse stall. I think it's a stall. Anyway, I don't know much about horses, to be honest. But these are beautiful doors. Really nice element with that curved arch. Kind of makes it look elegant. One thing I will say is up at the front here in this front facade, there's two things that I don't like about this little area right here. And we're kind of getting away from architecture for animals and just getting into a critique, but is what it is. So, just erase that. What don't I like here? Well, one, I'm pointing out these little archways, and these show up in a few spots in the building. Um, they're really nice, they're elegant. Basically, every doorway has this arch, except this one right here. This is kind of the front entry, and it's got this pointed arch. So that's just inconsistent. It doesn't match anything else. Like, why wouldn't you do a curve there to match? That would just, I don't know. When you're not consistent like that, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Personally, I would have loved a stone arch there, like a nice rounded one to match all these other ones. Would have been really nice. The other thing that I don't like about this front facade is just this upper portion right here. Look at this. Like you can see the top of the roof is about here, right? But yet they extended this peak by like, I don't know, that's got to be 5 or 6 feet. Like it's pretty significant. So that sort of the backside of that arch, or gable, I should say, it's not really an arch. The backside of that is it's well above the roof. So you're being a little bit facetious in how you're describing the front of your building. You're because from the street, again, I imagine you're looking at it this way. It looks bigger than it is, and it's trying to be more than it is, and it's a little bit deceitful. Don't love that, but I mean, it's just not. You're just doing it for show, and that's it. But in a building like this, maybe that makes sense. I don't know. Either way, there are some beautiful little. I don't know what you call these actually. Little sort of light wells with spires on top. But keep this in mind for later because initially when I looked at this, I thought, man, this is a really nice way to on a cloudy day or evening time or something like that when there's less light and this is a big space, right? It can be pretty dark in there, but imagine first thing in the morning or at dusk or just sort of an overcast day, these things would catch so much light, right, and bring it down inside. So I love this idea. However, keep that in mind here for later. We'll look for those. What else? There's a couple little small details here. I kind of like this detail. It's just that kind of looks like a Norwegian sort of European Scandinavian detail. It's like a rafter detail. I don't think that really serves much function. Although actually I shouldn't say that because it may be that extra overhang does protect that sort of gooseneck light there a little bit, or maybe that's a security camera. But anyway, just a little bit of protection from the precipitation, the moisture. And you can see that happens in a few spots here. I'll erase that. Because we got kind of hidden behind this post here. You can see there's one of the main doors there for the horses, vehicles, people, whatever. And they have this really nice, solid little overhang there, which does a couple things. I think it adds a little bit of depth to this whole front facade, and as opposed to just a sort of a blank wall with a few windows and doors punched in it, it offers a little bit of depth, and it does, I think, also provide a really functional element. By providing a little overhang there, you are protecting this door, and you're stopping some rain from coming in there, some snow, whatever. So it is pretty functional. Some of these windows you'll notice are open. That one in particular, I think ventilation is important in this. You can imagine it might get a little wet, might get a little dank in there with animals and wet straw and hay and all that stuff, and mud, whatever. So anyway, pretty loose on the exterior. I think just super functional, like just a gravel driveway, kind of what you'd expect. I mean, it's for horses. Got to be rugged. It's not going to be a paved driveway. So, rugged materials. This is a nice shape to the roof too. I'm just noticing this. The slope of this was pretty standard, but then they do bring in a second roof line that comes in at a shallower angle. On the edges, and it just kind of it breaks up this giant roof a little bit and also provides obviously a little bit more space underneath there for the stalls. So moving on, I don't want to spend too long on that. I got a whole bunch of stuff here to go through. So a couple of exterior details. I like this. This is it looks like it's copper. It's a little exterior light that's all done in copper. Kind of matches the tone of the framing of the windows and the woods. We've sort of a darker wood down here for the fascia, and it looks like soffit as well, and then some of the structural posts. So that's just a really nice warm metal element, and it kind of brings it a little bit of I don't know, like some French detail, I think. If I was going to try and put a finger on sort of the design style of this, it's kind of like a craftsman, English, French, somewhere in there. I'm not totally sure. Like these little spires feel a little bit French. The stone could be English, French. But then you look at some of the detailing up here. That's really nice, elegant. Same with this then, and then some really nice stonework right on the front facade. So, and it looks like I was gonna say I thought that was metal, but I think that's also wood siding. This looks like it's metal up here in terms of roofing. Again, sort of French. The interior here, this is where I really start to look at this and go, hey, this could be French for sure. I mean, you have chandeliers. This is a horse barn, and you have chandeliers. It's a pretty classy little space. But in terms of functional elements, again, architecture for animals, what are we dealing with? Well, this has to be a very functional space. You have giant beasts of animals coming in here. I don't know what a horse weighs, but they're big animals. They're going to be dirty. They're outside. They're covered in mud and muck and snow and whatever. So they're coming in here. They're going to be wet. Sometimes you have to hose them off, clean them off, hose out the stalls. You can see here everything kind of slopes to these central drains, which is super functional. And then assuming then that a lot of this stuff is going to have to get sprayed down for cleaning and whatnot all the time, it's just a lot of hard surfaces. Looks like a brick floor. What else do we have? These, what appear to be wood columns supporting the roof here. They're clad in, it looks like maybe a precast concrete or I don't know, something like that, like something hard. It could be tile. I see some joints in here, right? But anyway, something tough and durable that you can wash down easily. I think that's important. All these gates are pretty solid metal. Some nice little flourishes, like these little golden globes or brass globes. That's probably a functional element. I imagine. I mean, they look nice. They're sort of classy little details. Um, but I imagine, if you have this horse and it's got a bridle on it and you need to tie it up in a short order for some reason, like that gives you something you can loop your reins over. So I think that's a pretty functional detail. Um, Another detail that I don't particularly, I don't know if I dislike it, but I was kind of caught off guard is just look at the ceiling, the wood cladding for the ceiling and how, you have this sort of central bay right between here and here. This is kind of your central bay space, sort of the highest point of the ceiling, and all the wood is running basically up to the central ridge beam there, right? But then once you get past these um, beams here and to these sort of outer sides of the barn, the wood cladding is running the complete opposite direction now, which is, I don't know, I don't mind it, but I never would really think to do that myself. I don't know what will cause them to do that, but at first I thought I disliked it, but maybe I actually do like it. There's something to be said about it. It might delineate the space underneath here, and sort of like this area is kind of a space, and then this sort of central area is its own space. It's giving a little bit of um, separation in terms of the feeling of those spaces, but I don't know. Yeah, I think it'd be totally fine if it was all continuous too. So anyway, what else do we have here? Love this floor. We talked about this, super durable. See the floor drain there. You can just hose this down. And actually, reading on this project, this whole herringbone floor, which that's the pattern of these bricks, right? You sort of have this crisscross pattern to the brick that's herringbone. Underneath all that, this is all radiant flooring, which when you're talking about snow and mud and muck in the cold winter months in Ontario, there's a lot of snow. So this floor stays nice and warm. That serves two things. One, any kind of snow that's coming off a horse, an animal, people working there, it's going to melt. You're not going to have any kind of snow buildup. And it's also going to just kind of slowly and um, fairly simply, it's going to give off a little bit of heat and just heat this whole space. It's just going to provide a nice little bit of warmth. It's not going to be a cold floor. And you know what? Another consideration, just for sort of consideration of the animals, again, talking about architecture for animals. Sure, you want a warm space, like you want the interior to be warm, but guess what? Horses are going to be sleeping in their stalls on the floor, right? You don't want to be sleeping on a cold concrete floor. If these have a little bit of heat, they're a little bit toasty and warm in the winter, that's so much nicer for the horses, right? Like that's got to be such a much more pleasant experience for them. And clearly the horses in here are, somebody cares about these horses a lot. They're probably spending a small fortune to train them, keep them in here. So you want to treat them right. What else do we have here? Again, these beautiful arched doorway details. I think these are really nice. All these doors are probably custom. I don't know. You don't see these very often. Again, a very European kind of a detail. Really nice. Durable materials along the lower portion of the wall. That's going to get some mud and stuff on it. Looks like maybe a sort of a grooming station for the horses. I don't know what you call that, but you brush them, you wash them, whatever you have to do. And so then presumably that area gets a little dirtier, and then so you have a nice sturdy durable material on the bottom that can take a bit of a beating, can be cleaned easily enough, and then wood above that where it can probably not going to be as much in terms of damage, right? Of course isn't going to be kicking up here, but maybe they clip the lower wall. A couple functional rooms there, and you can see the big space, the training space in behind. We've got some more photos of that later. Interesting that they've done sort of two kinds of wood. We talked about the dark ceiling. Again, they have the different direction of the cladding here. So this is going one way, this is going the other way. But in contrast with that, we have this very light, almost looks like a pine or a maple or something, right? A completely different color of wood, which just keeps the space a little bit brighter. If this was all dark wood throughout, it would be super dark inside. But speaking of being dark inside, remember we mentioned these beautiful light wells that bring in all this light when it's sort of dusk, and it could be this really dark space. Where are they? I don't see them. I think they're just for show. And that's super disappointing. I hate that kind of stuff. They do add sort of a nice regal detail to this and make it look, I don't know, it's elegant. It makes it just elevates it a little bit, right? Makes it look a little fancier. But I don't see them in here. Like one would, in theory, show up here somewhere, or maybe you'd see one here, but I think those light walls are just for show, and that kind of stuff drives me nuts. You're doing it just for the look. It had like literally no function. Don't love that, but anyway, got some nice airflow because there's more venting up there, so that's nice. I can imagine, this place could maybe smell if it got a little bit too stale in there. Um, Again, super durable materials along the lower portions where the horses, their hooves could be damaging these things. Easy materials to wash down. We have tile all around the stalls. The stalls themselves, one really nice detail that I do like about this that I can appreciate when we're dealing with architecture for animals in particular is like this is a stall in here, right? You can tell this is the doorway, um, and they've left the whole upper portion of the door is out so that, the horse is basically stuck in there. It can't leave, but it can certainly stick its head out, look around, see its neighbors, see what's going on. It doesn't feel as trapped. And the really beautiful detail is this lower grill down here. So instead of just a solid door, it's this really nice steel metal lattice work. Um, Dark, sort of a subtle detail, but just imagine how much nicer that is for the horse in there when you can see out. And also, we'll see a photo of this later. Imagine laying down in here. You're sleeping on the floor, which is warm, don't forget, right? We have this nice radiant floor. But guess what? If you're lying down, you can't see up and over this stall wall to see what's going on. But if you're lying down and this is a grill, you can see right through. You can see who's approaching your door. You know if it's your rider or your regular trainer. So I imagine it just kind of puts the horses at ease a little bit. And that's a really nice detail to see. At that level when people are thinking about their client, whether it's a horse or whether it's a person, when just the fact they're thinking at that level, that's really encouraging when you see that kind of stuff. Also some fans in here, just talking about circulation. I'm sure it could get a little stuffy. Another one up there. What else? Here's similar detail with these doors, right? This is exactly what we illustrated. The horse can stick its head out and say hello. But the same thing with the main doors down here, except it's each door can be split in half. I love this detail. This really is for you know sort of barn details and specifically for horses for sure because you can keep the horse, the animal, basically in the barn, safe without escaping. But they can get air. They can stick their head out this space here. So it just gives them that little bit of not freedom, but just that sense of space and just a little bit of I don't know. They get the fresh air. They don't feel like trapped in this cage, right? Because you don't want these animals to be skittish. You want them to be comfortable, and I think that's important. They can stick their head out of their stall. They can stick their head right out of the barn. It's just really nice. Big window at the end to keep it bright because we don't have those light wells up above. So anyway, again, here we would totally see one of those light wells at some point there in the middle, and it's just not showing up. So I don't think it exists. Kind of the same shot as before. Beautiful door details. Love this floor. I don't know. Nice detailing all around. What else here? Um, Here's a nice detail. Again, very specific to animals. We're dealing with architecture for animals. This is that same kind of barn style door, which again, split in the middle so you can open the top, you can open the bottom, a little bit of flexibility. And it's also, notice this door is in multiple parts because there's the inner door behind this wooden door, which again, if this door is wide open, you have the lower grate, you can see outside, you can get the fresh air. If you're a horse, you're much more comfortable. So it's a nice way to give them that sense of space and just, access to light and fresh air without letting them out. Um, Also looks like a very solid door. I mean, this is an exterior door, but it looks like solid wood for sure. You can imagine if this inner gate was open, but this door was closed and it was sort of flimsy. A horse would be able to kick that open, I imagine, if they really wanted to. So that's one particular detail I think that is important here. And this is one that really jumped out to me right away. Um, you imagine this horse in its stall. It's got the bridle on, whatever that looks like. I don't know, and it's got some metal loops and things on there for hooking on the reins, that kind of stuff. Imagine he's in there, you're moving around and you bumped into this glass window, and that were to break, and all of a sudden you have this jagged glass all the way around the outside of this window, which is super dangerous for the horse, right? You don't want that. So what they've done, really smart detail, also kind of doubles as security, but they've put this very low profile black metal sort of frame grill on this window, and guess what? Now the horse just it can't bump up against this glass. It protects the horse from the glass, also protects, obviously against intrusion and people trying to break in. Not that I imagine many people are breaking into horse barns, but this is, I think, more security for the horse, just to protect the safety of the horse. So that's a really nice detail, and I imagine a lot of the windows in this building have that. Here you see that door almost in the closed position. Again, super thick, heavy wood, heavy hinges too, right? Because that's a heavy door. It requires some heavy hinges, big bolts and things, so the horse doesn't accidentally knock it open. See the inside view, and just look how much nicer that is with that grill, right? You can see how just it provides that connection. If you're laying down on the floor down here as a horse, you can look outside and actually see what's going on, and you're not trapped behind that. You are trapped behind the door, but at least you can see through it. Um, we've pretty much covered that. There are security cameras in there. Okay, so maybe people do break into horse barns. I don't know, or maybe it's in case someone gets hurt or something. I don't know. This is more of a functional room where, again, looks like she's brushing this horse. A couple tie-ons that loop up to the reins to keep the horse stable. Again, durable materials along the bottom. Looks like there could be some moisture in here. You have to keep that in mind. So that has a electrical cover with a sort of plastic cover over it to keep moisture from out of there. Super solid grating back here. This looks much stronger than what's in the stalls. Maybe they expect more movement. Little horse is a little more unruly, maybe, if you're grooming it. So maybe that's got to be a little bit stronger in terms of protection. A couple other cool spaces. Again, love this door detail with the curved arch above. Looks like some saddles hanging over here on the left-hand side. Kind of cool little hardware specifically to hold those up. This is, I guess, your equipment room. You can wash things, and you have this big sort of work sink here with this hook above it, and I like this a lot because this is clearly custom and built specifically for this project. It's a bunch of old horseshoes. Looks like they're welded together and hung off stuff, so you can take your whatever you call this, all your horse tack, and you can hang it up and wash it right over the sink, which is kind of a nice detail. Looks like tile floor in here. I think maybe that's wood, but probably. Actually, I'm not sure. Tough to tell from the photo. Anyway, it gives also the nice visual connection to see what's going on. Probably for safety, right? You want to have eyes on people when they're riding horses. It can be a dangerous sport. People certainly get hurt. Huge open space. So this is the back sort of training facility. Super cool floor. Really nice sand, it looks like. And then there's a couple details in here. I haven't looked at this one in too much detail yet, but this span, like, that's massive. For a flat roof, like, that looks like a wooden timber. It's probably CLT or some kind of cross-laminated timber, mass timber, something like that. Tough to say. There's probably a huge truss above that, too. Could be steel also, but tough to say from the photo. Anyway, so that's a kind of a cool detail. Massive doors. Actually, so I shouldn't say that. Massive windows. It looks like. Yeah, so this is the main sort of horse door at the end, but these big windows, initially I thought these were garage doors because there's tracks. So these big windows, looks like this one, this one, this one, this looks like all of them actually, over here, over here, over here. They all have garage door tracks above them. So all of these things can slide up to the ceiling, and then all of a sudden you imagine all those windows open, how nice and breezy this would be on a warm day. Just really get some air circulation in there. Really nice detail. But it's actually better that they're not garage doors, right? Because even if those are open, somebody opens them by mistake or forgetfully leaves them open, the horse still can't get out, right? Because they basically have this lower sort of wainscoting all the way around, so the horse can't get out. So again, that's a nice little detail. If you're just designing this quickly and not thinking about it too much, you just say, "Oh, to make those garage doors." But then guess what? You can't leave a horse in there unattended if any of those are open, let alone all of them, right? Because they just wander right out. So that's a really cool sort of subtle detail. It's nice. This is super interesting. The bottom portion of this wall is all sloped away from the wall, right? I don't know exactly what that would be for. I guess that's just so it keeps. It's probably safety for the rider, I imagine, because you can imagine if a horse is walking right along the edge of the wall and they're not maybe used to having a person on them, and then your person straddling them, their legs hanging off. It'd be pretty easy for someone's leg to really get sort of bumped into that wall. So maybe that it just keeps the horse out from the wall, an extra foot, so it gives that little bit of space for the person's legs, so it doesn't get ripped off if they're running beside the wall. So probably a safety feature for the people. But I haven't seen that before. I don't totally know, but I imagine that's what it is. What else do we have here? So inside the stall itself, and this is, I mean, talking about architecture for animals, like this is literally for the animal. Looks like it's got a sweet little water fountain right here. So unlimited water. I guess this is hay for food over here. This is kind of like green color, and then this is just the bedding. So now imagine you're lying in here, and how much nicer is it with that lower grate on this door, right? The fact that you're sleeping, someone's approaching literally your bedroom. If you're this horse, you can see who it is, and it's not as disruptive. People can't sneak up on you, which is probably a nice thing. A couple other random little spaces. This looks like it's for some staff. Little kitchenette area. Um, pretty functional. This looks like you're spending the day out here. You got to get a meal, whatever. People that are training and people that are actually working there. You have to bring your lunch to work, whatever it is. You don't want to ride your horse into town to get lunch, then you pop it in the microwave or whatever. So, also looks like a wine cooler down here, which is a classy place. Don't see too many barns with built-in wine coolers. Um, this has got to be a shower. This has got to be a horse shower. I don't think I've ever seen one of these before. So this is you have the little sort of tie-ons here, right, to keep the horse in place. This is what looks to be sort of the main shower, right? The water's coming. It's like a rain head. It gets a rain head shower. This would probably be really nice actually to use yourself. Lots of water pressure and tons of water. So we got that. There's obviously some kind of little hose hookup or something here as well. So this is a wet room. You have the extra ventilation there too. Different kind of flooring. Maybe back at the very back there, that's probably some kind of a big slot drain, something like that. And actually, this is funny because this is basically like imagine a bathtub for human, like a walk-in shower, I should say. This is a walk-in shower for a horse, but it's so similar in a lot of ways. You have your shelf for your shampoo bottle, right? You put your shampoo in here. You get your soap here. You get your overhead rain shower head. It basically is a shower, just on a bigger scale for a bigger animal, and that's the kind of stuff you have to think about when you are dealing with architecture for animals. So anyway, that kind of covers all the photos I had of this building. It's a really cool project. As far as barns go, it's super nice. You don't see too many barns like this unless maybe you're in Kentucky or something, right? So, but I just kind of wanted to highlight the differences in architecture for animals, architecture for humans. Obviously, a lot of similarities, a lot of um, similar objectives and needs. If you're a horse or human, you need protection from the elements. You want to have a warm space that's dry and safe, and that does provide basically the same stuff as a house for humans, but at a different scale, with some different materials and different things in mind, some different functionalities. So, super cool. I mean, I'd love to see something like this, especially in operation with the horses. You can imagine this is probably a cool space. So anyway, we'll wrap it up there. If you're into architecture videos, there'll be plenty more of these to come. So give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. That'll help me make some more videos for you. Try and teach you some stuff about architecture. If you have any questions, if you want to know anything about architecture or architects, leave it down below. Leave me a question, leave me a comment. I'll get back to it. Maybe we'll make a future video out of that idea. So, anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one, and goodbye for now. Cheers.